Welcome, everyone, to the Injustice Film Festival Film Notes. I'm your host this evening, Otis Moss III, and I am very excited that we have the opportunity to have a conversation with the director and producer and cinematographer extraordinaire, Kevin Shaw, who is the lead for the team that created Let the Little Light Shine. The film that you just witnessed, it's an incredible journey about the National Teachers Academy. Kevin Shaw, who is our guest this evening, is an extraordinary filmmaker. He started out in the area of ESPN, doing some work. Specifically, some of you may have seen his work about Shaquille O'Neal and his college coach. The Stars produced a program entitled America to Me, where he served as cinematographer and also as segment director. He's a gifted artist, and this film that you witnessed, you can see the giftedness of Brother Shaw as he presented the journey of the National Teachers Academy and this incredible fight for those who are from the South Loop on the low end. For those who are Chicago, you know the low end, and the amazing organizing and people who become characters in this film was really an extraordinary journey for us. I want to thank all of those who have been a part of the Injustice Film Festival for putting this together and allowing us to screen such a wonderful film. But to the team of the Injustice Film Festival, I want to say thank you. That we are one of the few churches in this nation that has a film festival that's centered around issues of justice. During our conversation, information about the film festival, how to get tickets, about the film, and some of the other projects that we'll be doing through the film festival and our partnership with Unashamed Media and Trinity United Church of Christ. So I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for joining us. And let's go to our discussion with Brother Kevin Shaw. Brother Shaw, how are you today?
I'm great, Pastor Moss. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us for our film notes and our discussion of your extraordinary film that I have to say that I was deeply moved. Knew quite a few of the characters in the film, which is just wonderful having a film that focuses on Chicago and so many extraordinary human beings who are doing such great work.
And who did you know? Who did you know? I'm just curious.
Well, it was really quite funny because when the Greer family, and the Greer family is also a family that has a history of Morehouse College. I'm a graduate of Morehouse College. My father is a graduate of Morehouse College. My father knows Mr. Greer. And so it was just wonderful. I'm like, oh, wow, this is just really exciting to see people that you know and that your parents know in connection with the film. There were a few other people that popped up here and there, very small pieces that popped up here and there. Like, oh, wait a minute, we know this person, this person, this person. And there were a few people that you had in the background that said, wait a minute, we know them too. So it was just fantastic to see so many people that are connected, not only with Chicago, with the Trinity Village. And I think that was going to be the excitement for people watching the film. They're going to see some familiar faces. Brother Shaw, I wanted to ask the first question, and not directed at the film, but share a little bit with us about your journey as a filmmaker. How did you become involved in the art of filmmaking?
Well, I started as a journalist, and you kind of mentioned it in your introduction that my first job out of school was at ESPN, and I worked in sports TV. And really, I kind of learned the nuts and bolts of storytelling, visual storytelling through that experience. I worked there for 5 years, and I started from the lowest to the low as a production assistant and left there as a feature producer, a person that then is out there producing smaller, shorter features on people. But through that experience, I got to cover a lot of the big time sports, National Football League, basketball, college sports, met a lot of those athletes that we all idolize. Michael Jordan at that time frame in 98, was able to do an interview with him and things of that nature. So that was really my first kind of foray into kind of like visual storytelling. I always loved movies though, growing up. And I wanted to do more than just kind of tell sports stories. So I left ESPN. I could have stayed there and had a very successful career, I believe, but I ended up leaving and I went back to school and I studied cinematography. And I didn't go to like a famous, fancy film school or anything. I went to a small art school in Nashville, Tennessee, called the Watkins College of Art and Design. And I kind of really just studied the craft there and had a lot of opportunities to do things that I probably wouldn't have had those same opportunities if I went out to the coast and stuff. And eventually, learning through that craft, I kind of got back into, storytelling on my own again, being a cinematographer, being a producer. And long story short, moved out to the New York metropolitan area, lived in New Jersey for a little bit. I reconnected with a producer colleague of mine from ESPN who was doing a movie about this high school basketball coach in Jersey City, New Jersey. That collaboration became The Street Stops Here, which was my first documentary film. And I was kind of like entrapped into documentary after that. I just love the idea of following stories as they were happening and just seeing what the outcome of what they would be, and following compelling characters and such. Eventually moved back to Chicago and got connected with Cartemquin Films here in Chicago. They're a production company that most known for the documentary Hoop Dreams. Reconnected with that director, one of the directors of that film, Steve James, and he hired me to do work on America to Me, which you mentioned as well, which is a story about education in Oak Park River Forest High School, looking at the achievement gap and following students from that area to kind of see what was going on in that community.
Tremendous film, by the way. You did
I appreciate it.
Wonderful job with that one.
Appreciate it. And so that really kind of got me into doing these stories about social issues and education. And it just was kind of by coincidence that I fell into the National Teachers Academy story. We were finishing up America to Me during that time. And, I started noticing on social media, a old friend of mine, Elizabeth Greer. She was Elizabeth Hurd at the time that I knew her because we were both elementary school students together and classmates. We had lost touch, but, got reconnected on Facebook, but really hadn't been, talking that much. And I saw that she was posting items and news stories about NTA and the fight to save NTA. And there were two things about her postings that really caught my eye. One was just the whole story of National Teachers Academy being this high-performing elementary school that is now on the precipice of being closed and transformed into a high school, into something else, and what would the harm of that be for the community there. That was incredibly interesting to me. I wanted to see why this was happening. I didn't think that it necessarily was right. But the other thing that I noticed in these postings with Elizabeth was that the kind of shy girl that I knew as an elementary school kid had transformed into this activist. She had really found her voice. She had found her inner Shirley Chisholm or Angela Davis or what have you, in fighting to save her school. And that idea of activism and an average everyday citizen kind of finding that voice really intrigued me. And so with those two items in hand, those two thoughts in hand, I reached back out to Elizabeth. We reconnected, and the movie started in that fashion.
Take us through a few pieces. You mentioned how the film came about, your connection with Sister Greer. But most people assume that someone just takes a camera and just walks into a place and there's a documentary. Break down the scripting process. Break down, you had to determine who would be the main characters, who you would follow. Share with us the process and the team, because it's not just Kevin Shaw. You have an entire team working with you to produce the film.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, I might be the lead, but usually, you need a team to get these kind of things done. Filmmaking is a collaborative effort. And so for me, I needed a producer to really work side by side with me. I do like to kind of keep the team tight and small, especially when you're working in this potential venue of working in a active school and active classrooms. It's not the type of environment where you should be bringing, 5 to 10 people in and disrupting the atmosphere, the learning atmosphere. And so I knew that I really wanted to have one other person there with me. And this person, Rachel Dixon, who ended up being our producer on the film, she also was a sound recorder. So she was able to record sound. And I am a cinematographer as well. So, I'm the camera person basically. And so it's just really us two who were granted permission by the principal at the time, Isaac Castellaz. And you talk about what are the things that you have to do. Well, Elizabeth Greer opens the door for us and introduces us to some of the other parents that she's working with, the Nikita Brars, the Audrey Johnsons of the low end. But it's really then kind of garnering the trust of Principal Castellaz, who definitely did not think that this was a good idea of trying to transform the school into a high school, and was basically down for the idea of us documenting this journey. And he knew the risks that were involved, and we kind of all knew the risks that were involved if the district really found out what we were filming, although we're not trying to, cause any type of ruckus or any harm to the children who are there learning. Everybody in that building basically had our support. Everybody in that building wanted the school to stay open. So they all were comfortable with us being there. So logistically, once you kind of have that sign off, you have to get sign off from all the parents, to kind of be in the classrooms. They're like, the parents should know that cameras are in the classrooms.
Was that a problem? Did you have any holdouts that created some logistical issues for you?
We didn't have any holdouts. We definitely did have some people that didn't want their children on camera. And so those children were identified, and I made sure not to film them. And one of the things that we did when we were editing the film, we did show cuts of the film to the families and to participants of the movie ahead of time before it had its public debut, which was in March. And basically, again, to kind of get a sign off and make sure that they were all comfortable with not only the way that we told the story, but, again, did they not want their children to be involved in any way? And there might have been one or two that we, took the children out of the edit, because the parents didn't want them to be in for whatever reason. And I'm totally fine with that. But, number one, our intention is not to, A, disrupt the teaching that's going on, and B, cause any sort of harm or dismay or anything like that. We're there to kind of uplift the story and uplift the community. And that's our only intention there, and this school should not have been a school that was basically on a chopping block, to be closed. This is a school that should have been not only admired, but potentially modeled what the type of teaching that was going on here in National Teachers Academy. So we're just there to uplift that and support that in every way. So when we have all of those permissions, these are legal permissions that we're getting, and making sure that we're squared away, we feel a little bit more comfortable going in and trying to tell the story the best way we can and follow the story.
Now, did you have any conflicts with CPS? At any moment, did they ask for you to stop filming?
Well, my communication with CPS was this. I initially reached out to their PR department to ask them about filming. This is very early on, and I never heard anything back from them. And in talking with Isaac, with Principal Castellez, about how to handle the situations, and we talked frequently throughout the making of the film. He felt that it was best to just continue to do our filming and to try to ride the wave, basically. Again, I believe that even though we were just in the school to capture everyday life, slice of life moments, teaching, mentoring, that's all we were in the school to do. I think that the district would probably have denied us to film in there regardless of those good intentions, because they would think one thing without kind of getting the whole idea of what this project was all about. They didn't respond to any of our interview requests. We weren't able to interview the CEO at the time. And so that was kind of the line in the sand that they drew. And, unfortunately, we just had to continue to make this film, because it was important for us to make sure that the community here was really being heard. You have these community meetings that are going on that the district puts together, and a lot of times, people who participate in these meetings feel like they're not being heard, that their voices are not being heard at all, that the decisions have already been made and been decided upon, and they're just doing these things, that the district is just doing these things for show. And so we wanted to make sure that people knew who these members of the community were, and not only just the parents, but the students, and what they had to say, and that's important. A lot of times we feel like we're not heard and we're invisible, and we wanted to make sure that you're going to be heard and you're going to be visible here.
Well, I have to say that some of the editorial decisions that you made, just were quite beautiful. One, you have the Greer family, in terms of not just sharing, as many documentaries would, just talking head, here's what we're doing. We got a background in reference to the family, which I really appreciate that. And then Sister Johnson, who I love, and then framing her background, but the community of the low end. Oh my gosh, when you all did the B-roll of the cookout, that was brilliant. I just have to say, that was absolutely brilliant to include that, because you then truly got a sense of community that you would not get if someone was just sharing, we had a community. Right. And I thought that was just small things like that these editorial decisions that you made, just, I think, allow the film to sing.
I appreciate that.
About the editorial process, because I know you have more than you could have included.
No, we did. I mean, we were thinking about, at one point, would this be like a 3-hour type of series? We did have a lot of material, and we had a lot of material because we did a lot of that kind of filming. We did a lot of filming in the community, because I felt it was important for people to know about their neighbors. You talk about the low end, you talk about the icky homes. There's preconceptions of what living in the projects or living in low income housing is like. And I want to kind of dispel some of the negative stereotypes, and show the community, and show that there are families here that have connections and bonds that are strong. And going to the reunion was definitely some way to do that. You think about some of the students that are involved in the film, and to be able to share a little bit of the student Taylor Wallace and her backstory, and learn about her upbringing with her grandmother and her mother.
How did you all decide which students? I assume you had a lot of students that you recorded,
right?
But I mean, Sister Wallace, young Wallace, I mean, just absolutely bright, adorable stars. but an amazing voice. How did you decide on the students?
Well, when you look at the journey to save NTA, the eighth grade students in that year were very pivotal in that march. They were at every meeting. They were at every board meeting, trips
Mm,
to
mm,
City
mm.
Hall. They were the leaders of that. So it was important to find someone from that class or people from that class, other kids from that class who could best we could best follow and see that journey through their point of view. And Taylor was one who she was like at every meeting. Yeah, she really was. She didn't miss.
Really?
She really didn't miss anything. And so, seeing her and listening to her talk, and then just getting to know her around the school and listening to some of her teachers talk about her, and then her peers talk about her, she felt like a person that we should kind of dial into. And then you look at you mentioned Ya. She was a lot like Elizabeth when she was a little kid, you know, that shy but intelligent person, kind of trying to find her voice still. She was a kid who we felt like if this school did close and transform into a high school, she could have been a child who would have gotten lost in that transition because she had begun to build this relationship excuse me, this relationship and mentorship with Principal Castells. And if he's not there, well, then that mentorship and that relationship is gone, you know? And so a key component and a role model from her life that might make a difference in her life is just gone there. And she has to kind of start anew. And at that age, would that have happened for her? And so we felt following her story and the mentoring that was going on between her and Principal Castells was a way to kind of show that story and show that here is some good mentoring that's going on. And, you know, Ya has really blossomed now into such a young, transformative student. She's in high school now. She's at one of the top high schools here in the city. And, you know, she's got the world is her oyster. The future is bright for her. The future is bright for all those kids. Taylor, she's at Georgia State University now, you know, as a freshman. She just started this year. Some of the other kids, Marie Crawford, who's in there, is at Tennessee State. So these children are all in college, and they have to give NTA credit for helping getting them on a great path.
That's tremendous. There's some things that you do in the film. I was looking forward to asking you when there's a B-roll moment where there is a community meeting and a gentleman gets up and talks about gang infestation. And the response was just extraordinary by one of the community organizers. But what you did with the B-roll of lingering on this man's face as the response comes along. Most responses in B-roll would usually be, 1 or 2 seconds. You let it linger on his face, which told a completely different story, and to me expanded the story of the film. Share, because that was very intentional, and I appreciate you all doing that. Share why you did it that way.
Well, I mean, that was the feeling that I felt in the room while filming. You know, there was definitely this kind of silent hostility that went on as Nikita was basically calling some of those comments out and calling them correctly as dog whistles. You know, and these are folks who would probably say that they don't have racist intent. They're not thinking about stereotypes and discrimination, and yet, you know, they're using some of this language, this coded language that we know and recognize as a dog whistle. And so that person and other people in that particular venue didn't love being called out on it, frankly. And so I felt like we definitely need to show that in the scene so that a viewer at home can kind of feel that same hostility that's going on that I felt when I was there filming.
Now, did you have any pushback from the South Loop Elementary Community and the Prairie District Association as you were interviewing them?
Didn't have any pushback from them while we were interviewing them. I believe that they were, I don't know this for a fact, and I can't speak for them, but I would hope that they were glad that we reached out to them and wanted to include their point of view in this film. You could have easily not included their point of view, and they would have just dismissed the film. I think because their point of view is in the film, and hopefully they believe that it's been fairly represented, because I haven't heard from them since the film has been out publicly. So I don't really know what their reaction is to it. But regardless, they can't say that, we didn't include their points of view and their thoughts about this. So that's kind of how I see it.
Hmm. Quick station identification. This is Film Notes for the Injustice Film Festival. You can purchase tickets for the Injustice Film Festival, which is currently going on. You'll see that on your screen for information on www.injusticeforall.com. This is one of the only faith-based film festivals centered on the issue of justice. We are thankful for our committee that puts together this program, and we want you to participate virtually. And as we continue to come back, we look forward to having, again, screenings all across Chicago, supporting filmmakers from all around the globe. I'm talking with Kevin Shaw. He is the lead director and producer for Let the Little Light Shine, an extraordinary film that is featured in our Injustice Film Festival that will bless you as they follow a group of organizers from the National Teachers Association and their fight to keep their school, which is one of the premier elementary schools in the city of Chicago that was slated to be closed. Brother Shaw, share with us, what were some of the moments, every time that someone usually is filming, especially documentary, there is a moment that deeply touches the filmmakers. You're to be the fly on the wall, but there are moments that just really touch your heart or touch your soul. What were those moments or moment in this film that you will remember for the rest of your life?
That's a hard question. It's probably something that's not in the film, actually. And it goes back to just this idea that I spoke of with Ya and Principal Castellas. Principal Castellas ended up leaving NTA, not because he got fired or anything like that, but it was a time for him. He felt it was time for him to leave the school, and he left it in great hands. Tanika Brooks, who's in the movie, she's the assistant principal at the time. She is now the principal at NTA, and Courtney Langston, who is one of the 8th grade teachers, we see her in the movie. She is the assistant principal now at NTA. And when Principal Castellas was having his going away kind of party send off, I did get invited to come back and film that for him. And it was a bittersweet day. And I remember that Ya was there, and obviously much older. She came back, and she had some really, really touching words to share with Isaac and the crowd there, the entire school community that had came to send Isaac off. And I just remember seeing them embrace when she was done, and tears were shed, and the emotions were really overflowing. And I was thinking about, can I include that in some sort of posts, whatever, but it might just be a deleted scene for another day type thing. But seeing the outpouring of emotion there, it just really spoke to, again, that idea of what this person meant to this particular student, to Ya, and I think a lot of students have that person, that role model in the education space that they look up to, that they build a connection with, that really helps them move along in life, and having those connections are so important. And that's why teachers and educators, they are the modern day heroes. They are the superheroes that we need in life today, in society today. And to see that kind of connection right there, that really touched me. And regardless of whether it made the movie or not, it spoke to me and showed me why NTA was such a special place.
Hmm. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, Brother Shaw. You have created a piece that will last for generations. There will be people who will be looking at this film and seeing a model of what we can do, not only in terms of documentary film, but what we can do in our communities in terms of education. And I want to mention this one last piece and ask you to comment on it. One of the things that really, two things that touched me about the film, beyond the story, but the care in which you took in terms of filming the students and the parents, and the fact whatever lens or lighting you utilized, that Black folk were looking good on film. That's a little pet peeve of mine, that there are certain documentary filmmakers who don't know how to film us.
Mhm.
One, could you share just a little on the technical end, how you decided to film us? And then I have a follow-up around that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you see these like high fashion photographers that get paid for however much money they get paid, and they're doing a spread of big celebrity, a Beyonce or what have you, and they get it wrong, right? And you bring in a person of color to film and shoot a Beyonce or whatever, and they get it right, right. And so I don't know. I definitely have studied that, because you can still err on and make our skin, look bad, basically. And so I think soft lighting, for one, is great. Our skin absorbs light. So for me, what's been successful is kind of that's really big lighting source that just really shines and spreads out onto the face and really just gives it a nice glow and sheen, per se. A lot of times, sometimes the biggest lighting source is the sun, and it's natural light, and it's natural light just coming through a window. So a lot of times, some of those interviews I did, frame them next to a window, per se. And I just did natural light, and then maybe I would kind of cut the light down with a flag or something like that and try to really shape the face with some modeling in that way. But soft sources for me are the go-to in that regard. And then, like, when you're just kind of filming a verite scene, you just have to go with what you've got, So I'm not in there putting lights into a classroom or anything like that. I'm just kind of filming the best I can with whatever the natural light that's going on. But if I have an opportunity to manipulate the light, I will certainly bring in a soft, big source.
And my second thing to follow up on that is one of the things that demonstrated the beauty of the film, not only the cinematography, the lighting, that, Black people, we look good, because many times documentaries, I have questions about who's doing the filming. But the fact that you placed the camera and really got a beautiful shot of the children when they were coming down the hallways, the Congress and the drummers. So we were given an introduction and an image of Black children and educators that is normally marginalized. I mean, this is just me. I don't know. I'm not familiar with large committees and production folks, that they might have marginalized that. The simplicity of that was incredibly powerful, because we're like, we are dealing with a very unique, powerful school and students who are deeply engaged and sharp, and teachers who are very much engaged. And I just absolutely love those images. It really touched my heart to see that. And Did you film that first? Was that early on, or was that a later film? Because I was curious about where the sequence in reference to that.
No, Student Congress, that was very early. That was
Yes.
very early in our filming and getting to know everybody there. That was probably one of the first times we were in the school. It was a great opportunity to see what the school was all about, and the fact that they kind of had this Student Congress where students voted for their peers to sit on the Congress, and then they would do some democratic type of things throughout the year, and this Congress would represent, their students. That really touched me, and I definitely wanted to kind of document that day as they were celebrating this Congress, and to hear that they were going to, march down the hall and have the drum line, and it was just big pageantry. That was also new and unique and just beautiful and loving. And how could you not just immediately embrace the school after you kind of witness that and experience that? And then when you see what happens in that scene, when you have the two young men who are struggling with their recital, and I saw immediately how Principal Castle has handled that moment, because 9 times out of 10, anybody else would have been like, all right, we're going to go on to the next thing, thank you, so-and-so. But he handled that moment so well and took that all on him, saying that he had put those kids in a poor position and that was his fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that he uplifted those children immediately. And you notice while they were struggling, you didn't see kids, snickering or making fun of their classmates there. Like, they were quiet. They were curious as to what was going on, but they wanted their classmates to succeed as well. And so those moments right there, that really showed me what NTA was all about. At that moment, I knew that, okay, this is a unique place here. And this is one that I don't think that these politicians and some of these district leaders knew that kind of stuff was going on, and I feel like if they did know some of those things and had experienced some of those things, well, then we might not have even had the movie, right? Because then the school wouldn't have been on this chopping block and in this position that they were in.
Well, I want to say, for those who are watching, I hope that you will use this film for education, as a model, not only on the film's end, but also on the educational end. As Brother Shaw mentioned, that scene just blessed me on multiple levels to witness the Student Congress, the communication of the students, and the leadership in the school. And I will say, after seeing the film, I was like, I wish my children had been at NTA. It just seemed like an amazing family, high educational, loving environment. And you captured that in a beautiful way. Brother Shaw, thank you so much for joining us for Film Notes. We are going to show the trailer for the film. So for those who have not seen the film and are now excited about seeing it, we want to give you the trailer and again say that you can purchase tickets for the Injustice for All Film Festival at www.injusticeforall.com. Support this faith-based film festival that we are doing through donations, that we just want to highlight filmmakers who are doing work around social justice so that we can expand the lens of how we see the world and bring those who are on the margin to the center. So again, we want to thank this brilliant and wonderful filmmaker from Chicago, none other than Kevin Shaw. And we thank you for joining us for Film Notes, and let us go to our trailer at this time.
So many ugly things have been said about us, about our children, about our color, about our ability to learn. When that narrative becomes the reason why they should shut you down, then it becomes personal. Because now you're talking about my kids.
tonight, a proposal to convert an elementary school into a new high school is pitting parents against parents and parents against Chicago Public Schools. The school in question, the National Teachers Academy.
A high-performing academic school.
There's no question that a high school is needed for this area.
Chicago, the South Loop, booming real estate, exploding population. The last thing we wanted to do was steal a school from somebody.
This is about gentrification. This is about tailoring to wealthy middle-class folks versus low-income families.
This whole thing is a sham.
What do we take stands for? Things that we believe are right.
This is the moment for me that I have to stand up.
Starting today, we will be ignored no longer.
Here they come! We're not going anywhere right now.
We will fight for our school!
You gotta take your mind out of we don't have power and realize the power you have.
It wasn't like they seemed angry, they seemed like focused, organized.
I feel like you don't see what we see.
We love our school. We love each other. We love everything that we built here together.
We keep putting forth these valiant efforts, and we keep losing.
This is not over with. Don't give up.
We can all unite and be one and fight for what we think is right.